In the beginning, God created light. But what if the true power of that first word spoken, "Let there be light," holds a deeper, more transformative truth than we've ever realized? It wasn't just about illuminating the world. It was about igniting something within the very fabric of our being, a divine spark, a promise of creation, healing, and restoration. But what if that spark is more than just a concept? What if it's something you can access today to heal, to restore, and to create a life filled with purpose? Have you ever wondered why the world is the way it is? Why does mankind fall so often? And why do we seem to always need redemption? What is it about human nature that pulls us toward the very things that break us? Could there be a truth, hidden for centuries, that explains not just our failures, but also the path to our healing? Is there a deeper understanding of God's plan for us? A plan that could change everything we thought we knew? In this video, you will discover how the ancient stories in the Bible are not just historical accounts, but timeless lessons for healing and transformation. We will explore the creation story, the fall of man, the lessons of Joseph's forgiveness, and the ultimate redemption found in Christ. You will understand why healing doesn't just come from forgiveness, but from embracing the divine spark within you, a power that can guide you to freedom, peace, and purpose. By the end of this video, you'll see how the power of creation and redemption is not just a biblical story. It is a living, breathing reality that you can experience today. If you've ever felt lost, broken, or unsure of your place in this world, know this: God's divine light and healing power are available to you right now. And as we uncover these truths together, I encourage you to reflect on where you need healing, where you need light to guide your path, and how you can start living with the purpose God has designed for you. If this resonates with you, leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Where in your life do you feel you need to invite God's light in? Let's walk through this journey of healing and transformation together. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss out on future insights that will help you discover the life-changing power of God's love. The beginning of creation, the divine spark within us. In the beginning, when all was void and darkness covered the face of the earth, God spoke a single word: "Let there be light." From that moment, light pierced the darkness, and the very fabric of the universe was transformed. It was not just the creation of light, but the birth of purpose, of order, of something far beyond what could be seen with the human eye. God didn't just create the world, He imbued it with life, with intention, and with divine spark. This spark was not just a force of nature, it was the light of creation itself. The same light that calls us to awaken to our divine purpose. Imagine that for a moment, the first word spoken into the chaos was a word of creation. And within that creation was a promise. Light overcomes darkness, life overcomes death, and purpose overcomes aimlessness. This divine spark, the very breath of creation, resides within each of us. The power that shaped the universe also shaped you. The light that called forth life calls you to rise above despair, to awaken to the truth of who you are, and to begin creating a life filled with purpose, healing, and light. As you reflect on this, think about your own life. Are there places in your heart or mind where darkness has crept in? Have there been moments when you felt lost, alone, or without purpose? The story of creation reminds us that even in the darkest moments, there is a divine spark of light waiting to guide us. That spark is inside you, ready to help you heal, restore, and create the life you were meant to live. Healing begins when we embrace the light within. We may not always see it, but that light is always present, always shining, ready to illuminate the path ahead. This light has the power to heal our hearts, guide our decisions, and help us bring order to the chaos of our lives. If you've ever felt that spark within you, that quiet whisper urging you towards something greater, know this: that is the divine calling you to step into your purpose. The fall of man, the consequences of doubt, and the power of choice. The Garden of Eden was the epitome of perfection, a place where man and woman walked with God, free from sin, filled with peace, and in harmony with creation. It was in this paradise that Adam and Eve were given one simple command: to not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It was a command of love, designed to protect them, to keep them safe. And yet, in the midst of such abundance, in the presence of God Himself, they chose to disobey. Why did they make that choice? It wasn't the fruit that led them astray. It was doubt. The serpent's words whispered to Eve, "Did God really say?" That question, so simple, so insidious, planted a seed of doubt in her heart. Doubt is the enemy of trust. The moment Eve questioned God's goodness and intentions, she made a choice, not just to eat the fruit, but to step away from the trust that God had placed in her. She chose to trust her own understanding over God's word, and in doing so, the harmony of the garden shattered. Adam and Eve's choice was the choice of all humanity, the choice between trust and doubt, between obedience and rebellion. It wasn't about the fruit, it was about what the fruit represented, the temptation to elevate themselves above God's will. When they ate the fruit, they introduced sin, shame, and separation from God into the world. One choice, born from doubt, changed everything. But here's where the lesson lies. Our choices matter. Every day, we are given the opportunity to choose, to trust or to doubt, to obey or to rebel. The power of choice is what makes us human, and it is through the choices we make that we shape our world. Just as Eve was faced with the temptation to doubt, so too are we constantly faced with the choice to trust or doubt God's promises. So, how does this relate to you? Think about the doubts that arise in your own life. Have you ever questioned God's goodness when things aren't going the way you hoped? Have you doubted His plans when the road ahead seems unclear or too difficult? The story of Adam and Eve teaches us that doubt leads to destruction, but trust in God's goodness leads to life. When you face those moments of doubt, choose to trust. Just like Adam and Eve, you will face moments where doubt seeks to pull you away from God's truth. The key is to recognize that the consequences of doubt are far greater than the temporary relief it may seem to offer. Choose trust, choose faith, and choose obedience. When you do, you align yourself with God's perfect plan for your life. And in that alignment, you will find healing, peace, and restoration, just as God always intended. Healing begins when we choose trust over doubt and obedience over rebellion. Just as the first act of creation brought light to the world, the first act of trust brings light into our hearts. When we trust in God's goodness, we step into the light of His perfect love, and that light transforms everything. Where do you need to choose trust over doubt today? What areas of your life have you been holding on to in fear or uncertainty? The choice is yours. Choose to trust in the goodness of God, and you will find the peace and healing that come from His light. The power of forgiveness, Joseph's journey to healing. Joseph's story is one that stirs the soul and speaks deeply into the heart of forgiveness. He was the favored son, loved by his father, but envied by his brothers. This envy led them to betray him in the most devastating way. They sold him into slavery, abandoning him to a foreign land, alone and helpless. Can you imagine the pain of that betrayal? The sting of being rejected by those you loved the most. the emotional scars Joseph must have carried with him. Yet despite all of this, Joseph did not let bitterness take root in his heart. Through years of hardship, being falsely accused and imprisoned, Joseph still held on to something far greater, the belief that God was with him, that there was a purpose in his suffering, and that forgiveness would bring freedom. It was this belief that ultimately led to his rise to power in Egypt. The moment came when his brothers, unaware of his position, came to him seeking food during a time of famine. They stood before the very brother they had betrayed. The power was in Joseph's hands. He could have had them imprisoned, punished, or even killed, but instead he chose something far more radical: forgiveness. Joseph looked at his brothers, and instead of seeking revenge, he wept. "What you meant for evil, God meant for good," he said, embracing them and showing them mercy. Forgiveness is not about excusing the wrongs done to you, it's about releasing the power those wrongs have over you. Joseph's forgiveness was not just a kind gesture, it was a lifeline that brought healing, not only to his brothers, but also to his own heart. Forgiveness allowed Joseph to step into the fullness of his purpose. It was the key to his peace, his joy, and his ultimate success. He understood that holding on to bitterness would only keep him in chains, but choosing forgiveness set him free. In your life, there may be moments where you feel like Joseph, where you've been betrayed, hurt, or wronged by others. You may find it hard to forgive, to release the grip of pain that holds you captive. But the lesson of Joseph is clear. Forgiveness is not a sign of weakness. It is the most powerful choice you can make. Forgiveness doesn't excuse the wrongdoing, it frees your soul. It is the doorway to healing, both for you and for those who have wronged you. When we forgive, we let go of the past and allow ourselves to step into the future God has for us. The road to forgiveness can be long and painful, but it is a journey worth taking. Forgiving those who hurt us is not always easy, but it is the only way to truly heal. And in that healing, we can find the strength to live with peace, love, and purpose, just as Joseph did. Forgiveness is not just a release for others, it is a gift to ourselves. The Tower of Babel, the price of pride, and the value of unity. The story of the Tower of Babel is one of human ambition, pride, and the consequences of trying to reach beyond our limits. The people of Babel, united in their desire to build a tower that reached the heavens, sought to make a name for themselves. They believed that through their unity, they could achieve greatness, that they could reach God himself, or perhaps even surpass him. But what they didn't realize was that their unity was not grounded in humility or divine purpose. It was based on their own pride. They wanted to make a name for themselves, to establish their own glory, and in doing so, they lost sight of the true reason for unity. God, seeing the pride in their hearts, decided to intervene. He confused their languages, causing them to no longer understand each other, scattering them across the earth. The tower was never finished, and their prideful ambition came to an abrupt halt. What is the lesson here? Pride blinds us to the greater purpose God has for us. The people of Babel sought to make a name for themselves, but they forgot that true greatness is not found in our own power or achievement. It is found in humbling ourselves before God and seeking his glory above our own. When we build for ourselves, we inevitably fall. But when we build for God, he honors our work and unites us in his purpose. Unity, when rooted in humility, has the power to move mountains. But when it is based on pride and self-interest, it divides and destroys. True unity is not about coming together to glorify ourselves, it is about coming together to glorify God. Just like the people of Babel, we may seek to build empires or legacies, but if those pursuits are driven by pride and a desire for self-glorification, they will always fall short. Only when we align our work with God's purpose will we experience true success and fulfillment. Think about the pursuits in your own life. Are you working to make a name for yourself, or are you seeking to make a difference in the world for God's glory? Pride may promise us greatness, but only humility and unity in God's will can lead to lasting success. The story of Babel teaches us that we must constantly check our motivations. making sure that our efforts are rooted in humility and love for others. When we work together for God's glory, we become part of something far greater than ourselves, something eternal. God's unity is powerful. It transcends language, culture, and circumstances. It is through this unity that we can truly impact the world, bringing light, hope, and healing wherever we go. As we build together in God's name, we bring heaven to earth. Let us ask ourselves today, are we building with humility and purpose, or are we building to make a name for ourselves? Only when we seek unity for the right reasons can we experience the fullness of what God has for us. The test of faith. Abraham's ultimate trust in God. Abraham's story is one of faith, trust, and surrender. He had been promised by God that his descendants would become a great nation, as numerous as the stars in the sky. But when God asked Abraham to take his beloved son Isaac, the very son who was the key to God's promise, and sacrifice him on an altar, Abraham faced a test of unimaginable proportions. How could a loving God ask such a thing? The very promise of his future rested in Isaac, and yet God was asking for his surrender. Imagine the turmoil that must have stirred in Abraham's heart. Every part of his being must have cried out in confusion and fear, yet despite the heart-wrenching nature of the request, Abraham trusted. He trusted that God's plan was greater than his understanding. He trusted that God was good, even when the circumstances seemed impossible. Abraham's faith wasn't based on certainty or comfort. It was based on a deep trust in God's goodness, even in the hardest moments. As Abraham prepared to sacrifice Isaac, his heart heavy with grief, God intervened at the last moment, stopping him and providing a ram as a substitute. The test of Abraham's faith was not about the sacrifice itself. It was about trusting that God's promises are always true, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. Through Abraham's obedience, he learned that God's plan is not always understood in the moment, but his plan is always good. It is through trust in God, especially when we cannot see the way forward, that we experience the fullness of his blessings. Faith is not about having all the answers. It's about trusting God even when we don't understand. Abraham didn't understand why God asked him to sacrifice Isaac, but he trusted that God was good and that his promises were unshakable. The test of faith is often a test of trust, a trust that God knows better than we do, a trust that he is guiding us even in our darkest hours. Abraham's story teaches us that faith isn't about understanding the whys and hows. It's about surrendering to God's will, even when it challenges us. It is in that surrender, in that trust, that we experience God's most profound blessings. Every step Abraham took toward that altar was an act of faith that brought him closer to the fullness of God's promise. Just as Abraham trusted in God's goodness, we too are called to trust, knowing that God's plans for us are always for our good, even when the journey feels uncertain. Where in your life is God asking you to trust him, even when you can't see the way forward? When we walk in faith, we walk in the light of God's promises. Abraham's story shows us that even in the moments of deepest doubt, God is still with us, and he will guide us through the storm. The promise of redemption, a journey of healing and restoration. From the beginning of time, God's plan has always been one of redemption. In the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve fell, God didn't abandon them. He promised a way back, a path of healing and restoration. Throughout the Bible, this theme of redemption plays out over and over as God calls his people back to himself, offering forgiveness, healing, and hope. God's plan for redemption is not just about saving us from sin, it's about healing the brokenness within us, restoring us to the fullness of life he always intended. Joseph's life is a beautiful example of this promise of redemption. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and falsely accused, Joseph faced unimaginable hardship, but through it all, he never lost sight of God's purpose for his life. God used Joseph's suffering to bring about the salvation of many, including the very brothers who had betrayed him. When Joseph forgave his brothers and reconciled with them, it was not just an act of kindness, it was an act of redemption. Joseph's forgiveness brought healing not only to his brothers, but to his own heart as well. This is the heart of the gospel, the power of forgiveness, healing, and restoration. When we forgive, we become part of God's redemptive work in the world. The healing that we receive from God is not just for us, it is for those around us as well. Joseph's act of forgiveness didn't just heal his family, it saved them. In the same way, when we embrace God's forgiveness and grace, we become agents of healing and restoration in the lives of others. In your own life, you may have experienced deep wounds, betrayals, or heartache. These experiences, though painful, can become opportunities for redemption if we choose to forgive, if we choose to trust in God's healing power. God is in the business of redemption. He is in the business of restoring what has been broken, of bringing light into darkness, of healing what is hurting. Just as he worked in Joseph's life, he is working in yours, bringing healing, restoration, and transformation. But redemption doesn't just happen automatically. We must choose to participate in it. We must choose to forgive, to let go of the past, and to trust that God is working all things for our good. When we do this, we experience the full power of God's redemption in our lives. We are not just saved from sin, we are healed, restored, and made whole. God's promise of redemption is not just for the end of time, it is for today. You don't have to wait for the future to experience the healing and restoration God offers. It begins now. Wherever you are, whatever you've been through, God is ready to redeem you. The question is, will you trust Him? Will you allow His healing power to transform your life and make you whole again? Redemption is available to you today, and it starts with the choice to trust in God's love and healing power. Let His light shine in your heart and experience the fullness of His redemptive work in your life. As we bring this journey through the stories of creation, faith, and redemption to a close, it's important to pause and reflect on the deeper truth that has been unfolding before us. From the very first spark of light in the beginning of time to the powerful moments of forgiveness and faith demonstrated by figures like Joseph and Abraham, the Bible shows us that God's purpose for us is one of healing, restoration, and redemption. The divine spark that began with creation is not just a cosmic event, it's a living reality that we carry within ourselves, a light that calls us to rise above the struggles of this world and to live with a sense of purpose and divine love. When we talk about forgiveness, we don't just mean the act of letting go of past hurts. It's a profound choice to free ourselves from the chains of bitterness and to step into the fullness of God's healing power. Joseph, through the pain of betrayal, chose forgiveness not just as a gift to his brothers, but as a gift to himself. In that choice, he found freedom, peace, and a deeper understanding of God's plan. This is the healing that comes from choosing to forgive, a healing that transforms the heart, that breaks the chains of the past, and opens the door to a future full of hope. And when we look at Abraham's journey, we see a man tested by faith, a man asked to surrender the very thing he loved most. Abraham's obedience wasn't just about following a command, it was about trusting in a God whose ways are higher than ours, whose plans are beyond our understanding. Abraham's faith wasn't blind, it was rooted in the conviction that God's promises are always true, even when the road ahead seems impossible. This kind of trust, this unwavering faith in the goodness of God, is the kind of faith that leads to healing, restoration, and blessings far greater than we could ever imagine. These stories of faith, of forgiveness, of redemption, are not just ancient tales. They are our stories. They are the stories of our struggles, our pain, and our triumphs. They show us that no matter where we are in life, God's light is still shining, still guiding, still calling us to something greater. We are all part of this divine story. And if this video has touched your soul, if it has helped you find a flicker of light in the midst of your darkness, I ask you to consider supporting this journey of healing and restoration. Every like, every share, every comment, and every subscription helps keep this message alive, so more hearts can be touched, more lives can be transformed. Your support is more than just encouragement. It's a partnership in spreading the hope, the healing, and the love that only God can give. If you found value in these words, if they've helped you heal or given you strength, I invite you to share this message. Let's spread the light together. Let's build a community of healing and faith where we can support one another and walk in God's promises every day. I also want to say from the depths of my heart, thank you. Thank you for being here, for watching, for listening. Every moment you spend with this message matters. Your time and energy are a gift, and I am so grateful that you chose to spend it here with me. As we continue this journey of faith, healing, and restoration, know that you are never alone. God is with you, His light is within you, and His healing power is at work in your life right now. Let's walk forward together, trusting in His plan, knowing that every step we take is a step toward deeper healing, greater peace, and more love than we could ever imagine. Remember, you are a part of God's great plan, and your story is still being written. The light that began with creation is still shining brightly within you. Keep walking in that light. Keep trusting in God's goodness, and keep forgiving, because in that process, you will find the freedom and healing that only He can offer. Again, thank you for being part of this journey. I look forward to continuing to share these messages with you, and together we will see the healing, restoration, and transformation that comes from walking in God's light.